Welcome to Legendary Physique. This is part 4 in our series of discussions with Jerry Brainum. So Jerry, what do you consider to be the 5 myths of nutrition that really drive you crazy?
I see that every day, literally every day, because I go on these various medical sites and I look at a couple of blogs. There's not a day that goes by when somebody's not demonizing fructose. Again, it's like the old saying, only the dose determines the poison. I'm not saying fructose is harmless. In large amounts, yeah, it's going to turn into triglyceride, which is fat. It's bad. But, same could be said with any sugar. Any sugar taken in large amounts is going to screw you up. So anyway, that's one. But that's not one of the 5 that I was going to talk about is, again, this relates to the low carbohydrate diet again. And, you probably heard this too. The opponents of the low carbohydrate diet, they're still spilling out so many falsehoods that I want to just get them and put them up against the wall and repeatedly pummel them in the face. Because what they're saying, for example, a low-carb diet is dangerous and it causes heart disease and premature mortality, right? This is based on the old saturated fat thing because the theory is, well, let's say your low-carb diets are high in protein, and proteins will cause your kidneys to fail and cause you to lose calcium. And, of course, you have all that saturated fat's going to just completely clog your arteries and give you massive heart attack. This is what they're actually saying this stuff. And the truth is, in the last 5 years, all right, I admit some of this research has been sponsored by the Atkins Foundation, so there is a bit of an axe to grind there. I admit that, but it's still, some of these have been double-blind, randomized, crossover, controlled studies. So the science is good. They found just the opposite. When you follow a good, solid low-carb diet, the risk of death goes down, and the cardiovascular risk factors go down. The beneficial factors like HDL, which protects you, high density lipid, it goes up on a low carb, high fat. And on a low fat diet, that what's usually recommended, low fat, high carb, HDL goes down and LDL goes up. LDL, when oxidized, that does give you heart disease and strokes. So they got it backwards, right? So all this crap you hear about low carb diets, it's just a bunch of bullshit. Like, as I said earlier, a low-carb diet is not right for everyone. Not everyone. Some people just can't handle it. They don't like it. They don't feel right. I'm not saying it's a universal diet, but to say that it's going to kill you and it's going to cause heart disease is not scientifically accurate. It's not correct. And by the way, this is a very bold, broad statement. I'm thoroughly convinced that a properly used, and this is a shocking statement, because I am thoroughly convinced that a low-carb diet will actually cure type 2 diabetes. I didn't say prevent it, I said cure it. There's been a couple of studies, and that is a very significant statement because, I don't know if you follow the news, the incidence of type 2 diabetes is epidemic. It's skyrocketing. It's showing up in 12-year-olds because they sit on their asses and play video games. They don't move anymore. So they're getting they've shown signs of diabetes in infants because of poor diets and stuff like that. So the incidence of type 2 diabetes is skyrocketing. A lot of it has to do with excess body fat, lack of activity, and just poor dieting in general. But the truth of the matter is, if you follow a properly designed low-carb diet, you can, you will lose fat, which is part of curing diabetes, admittedly, but you will actually be able to get off diabetes drug. You will no longer have diabetes. So, come on, give me a break. It should be, every diabetic should be on a low-carb diet. And it's still, the Diabetes Association are still telling people to eat high-carb, low-fat. It's incredible. Yeah, no, it's like putting oil on a fire. That's the worst thing a diabetic can do.
I don't understand how people can just ignore flat-out evidence, but it's rampant.
It's right there. It's all. Don't take my word for it. Look for it yourself. And the thing is, it's not like these people are dummies. They're educated people. They're medical doctors. They have PhDs in various branches of science, and they're still spouting off this crap. I don't get it. The only thing I could say is, and I hate to get into this conspiracy theory crap. I know you don't like it. I don't like it either. But it makes me wonder if maybe the sugar lobbies and some of these industries are paying these people off. Why else would they ignore the gigantic body of research?
Oh, stuff like that does happen.
Yeah, and let's face it, it's like Howard Hughes or somebody wants a P.T. Barnum. Everybody has a price. Eventually, if you pay somebody high enough, some people will do anything. I mean, well, I'm not like that. I mean, I'm not going to do things that are crazy for any amount of money, but some people will, so anyway, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, this is another one, kind of funny one, is that you read a lot where they say carbohydrates are absolutely essential. You have to have carbs every day. Wrong. Check any nutritional biochemistry textbook. Carbohydrates are not an essential nutrient. Why? Because what is essential is glucose. You have to have glucose in the blood. Your body does need glucose, but it can make glucose from other sources. 10% of a triglyceride molecule. Triglyceride molecule consists of 3 fatty acids attached to glycerol. The 10% of the triglyceride molecule is glycerol. Guess what? Glycerol can be converted in the liver into glucose. Lactate, which is produced when you work out, lactic acid, lactate, that can be converted in the liver into glucose, right? So in other words, there are other sources of glucose. This makes carbohydrates it makes it dispensable. I'm not saying you shouldn't eat any carbohydrates, but they write flat out statements. You have to have carbohydrate. Not true. Not true. Even the tissues that they used to think needed carbohydrates, like the brain and certain the retina of the eye, a lot of people get the statement that, well, your brain needs a certain amount of glucose, your retina of the eye, your nervous system has to have a certain amount of, yes, it does, but it doesn't mean you have to get it from carbohydrates. Remember, you could make glucose from these other substrates through a process called gluconeogenesis in the liver. So it's a false statement to say that you need carbohydrates are required. It's just a false statement. And again, I'm not saying not to eat it. I'm just saying to give a blanket statement that carbohydrate is not true. It's a lie. It's not true. The next one is, I already talked about that, the high fructose content with the fruit. The next one is, you need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. You ever hear that one?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
you only discount all the water that's in fruits and vegetables and other things you eat, right?
Yeah, and it's like the fruits and vegetables, 95% water. I mean, give me, But the thing is, some guy about 2 years ago, this doctor, I think it was the British Medical Journal, he tried to trace where this came from. He tried to find the original study, where it said that humans require 8, and he never found it. He did an extensive search of the letter. He was never able to find anything. It was literally one of those things that somebody took out of the air.
It's become a badge of honor to go around with a jug of water around in the gym with a bunch of guys.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's one of these things where some guy just declared, human beings need 8 glasses of water a day, and from now on, every human being will be required to ingest glasses of water.
I never bought into that.
It's false. Oh, hey, listen, we both know you need water. I mean, if you go, I forget whether it's 4 or 5 days. You go 4 or 5 days without any water, you're going to die. I mean, your body, for crying out loud, your body is your muscles are 72% water. Your body is something like 62% overall water. So you got to have water. But this arbitrary 8 glasses is nonsense. The truth of the matter is what they say now. Let's say the adjusted statement is to just consume the amounts of water that are comfortable to you. There's no need to force water down. There's no need to carry around jugs of water unless it makes you feel better in the gym. To if you get thirsty and you don't want to drink out of a infested water fountain like I see in Gold's Gym, but guys they spit in the gym. I mean, I would never drink out of the water fountain like that. That's a good reason to carry your own water. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying is that this thing about 8 glasses of water, it's not. And as you accurately pointed out, a lot of foods are naturally contained high in fruits and vegetables, over 90% water. If you drink coffee, it's water. I mean, it's water everywhere. I mean, it's literal. So, I mean, it's not something to be concerned about. Of course, if you're doing crazy things like you're taking diuretic drugs, which can affect the water balance of the body, now that could be a problem. Now that's a whole different situation. I'm just talking about normal intake. Diuretics is a whole different animal, right?
Or if you're a roofer or something out in the heat.
A roofer in the heat, and you know what? It actually, if you're working out in a hot environment, maybe in Florida or here in California, if it's one of those really hot days in the gym, I think it actually is a good idea to drink water, because you'd be surprised how fast you can get dehydrated. And when you get dehydrated, it's a weird effect because you won't feel it. I mean, if it gets really bad, you get these really bad headaches, right? But what happens is in the workouts, dehydration will be expressed. Here's how you'll know: is suddenly you'll get this sudden onset of fatigue that seems to come out of nowhere, and like you'll be in the middle of the set and the muscle will go dead. And the third thing that happens is, if you had, let's say in the earlier part of the workout, if you had like a really great pump going, suddenly you're not getting any pump, nothing. All those are signs of your water balance is down, and you should drink your water. So carrying around, I amend that statement, carrying around a jug of water or whatever in a hot environment, it actually makes a lot of sense. That's not a bad idea.
I think they need more than a bottle, though. Do they need a big jug?
Nah, they don't need a jug.
Yeah.
A pint of water is yeah, I mean, and you don't need to add salt to it either. That's another myth. I mean, the salt is ubiquitous. There's no need to ever take salt unless you're, one of these ultra distance runners that's running 100 miles. Those guys were wound up taking too much salt. They were getting this other disease that has to do with what was it called? They were getting a hypernatremia where their salt level got too high. I mean, so and that's again a whole different story. But anyway, so and. And the last thing I was going to say about this myth is, and you might disagree with this, Richard, but I was talking about this just the other day, and I saw it on Facebook. But the notion that you can't gain any muscle at all, or that you will lose muscle if you're a vegetarian. Yes, you will if you do it wrong. I mean, and as I pointed out to one guy, the two main problems with a vegetarian diet as far as building muscle. There's two main problems. First is getting sufficient essential protein, essential amino acids. You have to eat a lot. I mean, it's true. If you're a vegan and you want to build muscle, you're going to have to eat a lot of food to get the right amount of amino acids. The second thing, and this is probably the major, is fat. A lot of vegan diets are lacking fat. If your diet goes below, let's say, something like 25% fat, your body basically stops making testosterone. And without testosterone, it's needed to support muscle growth. You're not going to be able to get much muscle growth. But, doing that and a couple other things, I'm also going to write an article about this for the newsletter. But, the notion that it's impossible, is it more difficult? Yes. It's definitely harder to build muscle as a vegan. And when I say vegan, I'm not talking drinking milk and egg. That to me is not a vegan. As we talked about today.
Bill Pearl was a lacto-vegetarian, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's not a vegan. Come on, give me a break. Seriously. I mean, I can't even compare it to anything. Milk and eggs are the two best protein. If you cut out meat and fish and you're eating milk, you haven't skipped a beat as far as protein intake. It doesn't affect you at all as a bodybuilder. Nothing. A true vegan literally lives on fruits and vegetables. No meat, no fish, no eggs, nothing no animal foods at all. Just fruits and vegetables. Now, for them, it is harder to gain muscle. It can be done. I mean, I've looked into it, and I do believe it can be done. I mean, we saw that guy who won the NAB the Universe, who says he's a vegan, But I mean, an interesting fact, what I'd like to know, which I don't think anybody has ever looked into, is what happens when a vegan bodybuilder takes massive doses of steroids. I mean, is that going to help or hinder? It's a good question. I think it would actually help because it has to do with more like protein synthesis. It's related to the amino acid intake, which could come from anywhere. Plants, just a question of quantity. In other words, animal foods are better for building muscle because they contain much greater quantities of amino acids. You don't have to eat as much, so it's easier to build muscle. And of course, meat does have a couple things that are also helpful, like creatine. I don't know if you saw one guy on Facebook was telling me that, if you cut out meat, you won't gain muscle because creatine's an essential nutrient. I don't know where he got. See, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the misinformation on the internet. Creatine is not an essential nutrient. It's an amino acid byproduct. It's made from 3 amino acids in the liver, and the kidney, and the pancreas. And yes, it's a great supplement. It's probably the best single supplement I know of as far as effectiveness goes, for building muscle, other than protein itself. It's not essential because it's made in the body. I mean, if anything that's made in the body, by definition, is not essential, and your body makes 1 gram a day. So if you ate no meat at all, you'd still have creatine in your body. Of course, taking extra creatine if you're working out is going to make a difference. But the more meat you eat, the less effect you're going to get from creatine. And that's a simple fact.
Yeah, I liked your article on that. It was really explained that well.
Which one was that?
On the creatine. And eating meat, you can get it. The supplements are not necessary if you're eating a lot of meat.
Right, right, exactly. In other words, I mean, habitual meat eaters are already loaded with creatine. So, if they take creatine, they'll still get an effect because you have to understand you're always kind of breaking down some creatine. So they'll keep the creatine topped off, so they'll get some effect. But, you compare that with a vegan who takes creatine, who's going to get like almost like a steroid-like effect. They're going to get a huge effect from creatine. Huge, because then they don't, again, they only have the minimal amounts of creatine stored in their muscles. They only make 1 gram a day. So
They need to
5
read your
grams.
newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, it's almost like it's almost painful to me that these people don't know about my newsletter. I mean, they would just avoid so many problems related to nutrition and exercise, and they would learn things that would help them with the aging process. And I mean, I'm throwing all that in here. I mean, this idea. I mean, to depend on the internet stuff is just. I just shake my head. It's frustrating to me. There's nothing I can do except try and let people know about it. My philosophy of this newsletter is I want to give solid evidence-based information, no crap. It has no ads. I'm not associated with any supplement company, and I'm trying to focus on stuff that's not appearing all over the internet, kind of off the road stuff. I mean, I'm giving basic information for people that don't know this stuff, about protein and how to eat and how to prepare, nutritionally exercise for if you want to compete in bodybuilding or physique. I'm covering that stuff too. I'm also covering anti-aging, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, men, women, who are interested in testosterone, estrogen. I'm talking about ways to do that safely so you don't get any kind of medical problems. And the key point I'm trying to make here is that there's other publications, but they usually only cover one subject. Some of them cover nutrition, and they do it well. Don't get me wrong. They do it well. Some of them cover exercise, but I'm the only guy that's covering the waterfront. I mean, I cover about 10 different subjects.
We really appreciate Jerry Brainum sharing his vast knowledge of nutrition and training with our viewers. Stay tuned next week for more videos on how you too can attain your own legendary physique. Thanks for watching.
Sponsored by Phoenix Performance Fitness Center. Mention my name, Richard Baldwin, for half off enrollment on any membership plan and 10% off any personal training package.